that the term moral has become so variously defined, and it's sort of become a catch-all term within our common parlance. And so I'd kind of like to offer a definition, which is that morality is a three-tiered system consisting of principles or values. These are absolutes, absolute meaning that something is what it is regardless of our opinion. And they're also not arbitrary. Second tier would be the imperatives. So these are the obligations or the duties or the shoulds, oughts, or musts. And third is the accountability. So these play off of each other and they reinforce each other. And so when we're talking about morality itself, morality needs to account for and apply free will, first here, extrinsic human value and worth or dignity, and lastly, that it be known by all, that there should be some evidence of its ubiquity. And so from here, I'd like to discuss morality's ontology and consider what is the best option, what is the best basis or premise or foundation upon which morality rests. And let's start with nature, whether that is morality's ontology. Well, nature is not a being. It has no will, no volition. Nature is not a moral agent. Therefore, nature enjoins no morality upon us at all. Now, it is, in fact, unquestionable that, yes, indeed, we can observe any group of living organisms and certainly observe that there are certain behaviors which are beneficial to the group, and that's unquestionable. Although we must consider that these in-group beneficial actions, such as altruistic acts, are generally understood to be derived from the individual's act of self-preservation. So the individual, in order to preserve themselves, realizes in some form that it must benefit the group. So it all comes down to the individual. And in a sense, again, there's something, when we're discussing nature, we're not talking about morality at all. We're merely talking about our observation of certain actions. Because we might as well take a clue perhaps from the lemmings and follow in their footsteps, pun intended, and perhaps take turns committing mass suicides. Or perhaps from the apes we could learn to fight violent battles over territory and resources. But see, there's something that makes us say, well, these are the actions we want to follow and not those. And so that there's something beyond or behind nature. In nature, we're just talking about observations of actions and our interpretations of those. And also when we talk about nature, everything that's happened in human history or the history of the planet has been for our benefit, for evolutionary benefit, either by ridding us of the less fit or by preserving the more fit. And this is why people such as Sam Harris and Michael Roos and others can actually argue that rape played a beneficial evolutionary role because it performed a certain act of increasing the rapist's ability to procreate. And indeed, when Richard Dawkins was asked whether the fact that rape is immoral is as arbitrary as the fact that we evolved to have 5 fingers instead of 6, well, he responded in the affirmative. And so one may wonder if perhaps in places such as Haiti that just suffered drastic and sudden reduction in population level, maybe rape will make an evolutionary comeback and perhaps a moral comeback. And at this point, we may ask whether something is moral because nature selected it, or whether nature selected it because it is moral. Well, at bottom, there's really no such question in nature. The only thing, if we may anthropomorphize, the only thing nature cares about is survival and reproduction. It cares not for morality. You may reproduce and survive by being moral or not. In fact, truth is not relevant in nature. You may survive and reproduce by ascertaining certain empirical facts, indeed, but you may also do the same by living in a completely deluded. The only thing that matters is survival. So human dictates is morality's ontology based on human dictates. Well, unquestionably, all human beings can reason upon moral issues, come to certain conclusions, and they may even claim that these conclusions are absolute. No question about it. That is, we can make epistemic-based statements, but not ontological. Now, of course, human dictates, humanity being derived from nature in this view, we end up with the same problem that we're talking about humans' interpretation of what we should derive from nature as that which we should follow, that which we should do. And of course, in this view, we may get enough human beings to agree on a certain set of standards, and they could seek to enforce them. And maybe to the extreme on this view, morality is a way for that human beings figured out to control other human beings and to assist the survival of the group. Now, to this view, which, just for the sake of the economy of words, we may call naturalistic human derived morality, we could ask whether something is moral because the naturalistic human claims it's moral, or whether it claims it's moral because it is moral. And indeed, it would seem that if it is because the naturalistic human merely proclaims it to be moral, well, then that's really the human dictates du jour. And as human opinion changes, this may very well change, shifting around like so much quicksand, from zeitgeist to poltergeist. And so I submit that there must be something behind that and beyond that to which human beings are adhering. And from that, I want to consider some theological options. And if you will, actually, I'd like to read a couple of quotes, one from Dan Barker. And just notice the emphasis in these. If you wish to be a healthy person, that's why you should be moral. He means mentally healthy. If you wish to be labeled ethical by other people, if you wish to be viewed by society as a good person, if that's something you wish. And Paul Kurtz makes the point that we do not have to refer to God in moral issues because, quote, if Johnny hits Mary and Johnny's mother says don't hit Mary, why should he not hit Mary? Is it because God exists? No. If you hit Mary, she'll hit you back. She won't like you, and you won't have any friends if you continue this. The Humanist Society of Scotland states that it's best to be honest because I'm happier and feel better about myself if I'm honest. And David Brash states, be moral and your reputation will benefit. And on it goes. I think that they know what button to push. They're not appealing to morality for its own sake or for some sort of absolute human dignity or worth, but they know to apply to the individual and saying it will benefit you as an individual if you could carry out this moral activity. So to our theological options, and I ask you to pardon the succinct nature of that which follows because it's necessary in a way.